Let's talk about acceptable funds that can be used when doing a home loan, whether it's a purchase or refinance. So, acceptable funds for buying a home or acceptable funds for refinancing, it doesn't matter. They're all the same in the sense that the funds have to be acceptable. Using air quotes there. So, let's talk about what acceptable funds are and what they're not. So, I feel like to some degree, kind of obvious what they're not. So not acceptable funds, meaning like money that you really can't use on the mortgage side, or if we can't document it, we can't verify it. We're probably not going to allow it and won't count it. Yes, it's real. Yes, it's real government money. It's currency. It's all that stuff. It's real. I get it. You can go spend it, but on the mortgage side, they're not going to use it for qualifying from an asset standpoint. So if the guidelines say you got to have X number of dollars in the bank and you have X number of dollars in the bank, but it all was a big ass, pardon me, a big asset deposit. It sounded different than that. A big asset deposit, then it's going to be of cash. Then that's not going to work, right? So unacceptable is like cash, like, hey, I got 4 grand at home. I'm going to throw it in there. That's not going to work because we need to source where that 4 grand came from. Cash advances typically won't work. Personal loans. Hey, Ma, or hey, Joe, neighbor, I need to borrow money. I'm going to do a personal loan. It won't work. You can do gifts, but you can't do loans. Credit card advances. If you do them, a little tip, do them like 4 months before we ever start talking because we won't see it. Because at that point, the money is sourced in your bank account. But if you go get a credit card, yeah, personal loan, all that stuff. If we see it in the last 90 to 120 days on your bank statements, we're not going to do it. So if you source it and season it, or pardon me, you don't have to source it, but if you season it 4 months plus, we're not going to know. I mean, if you took out a $10,000 credit card advance 6 months ago, and by the time we see your bank account 6 months later and it just shows 10 grand in there, we're happy for you. But obviously, not necessarily a financially prudent decision because now you got that interest racking up on the credit card. But those are not acceptable funds. Again, gift money is allowed. Money from your personal account is allowed. If you have a joint account, somebody's on it, then oftentimes, if it's not your spouse, we're going to need to get access letters that says like, hey, whoever that person is needs to verify that this is your money. You're allowed to use it. So oftentimes we might see it where somebody has, let's say a parent still on there. I don't know, somebody in their mid 20s still has mom or dad on their account. That's okay. We just need, permission from mom and dad just because they're on the account to say, yes, this money belongs to Junior and, they're allowed to use it for buying a home. So you can do that. But like I said, any deposits that are showing up in the last 90 days. So I say 120 because there's always that look back to like a lot of bank statements will say previous month's balance. So if they see a big whopping change or the average balance may change, that's where they're going to ask for it. So we do need bank statements a lot of times. Sometimes we don't. There are programs where you can do like just with, a VOD verification deposit and they go in and they do stuff. But if there's big deposits, just know they're going to ask questions and we're going to need to see where the money came from. We need to source it. We want to make sure we're not selling drugs and guns to raise this money, right? That's part of the Patriot Act. We're required to do that as a lending institution. All lenders are. And I would also say, just to make life easy, I wouldn't move money around right before closing. Just, ask us what you need. Ask the mortgage market team, just, hey, what's the best way to navigate this? Here's where the money's coming from. Let's talk about it. And let's make your life and our life easier. Let's do it right so we can minimize the paperwork, make life easy for everybody. One other acceptable source is like, if you proceeds from the sale of a home, it's pretty obvious. We know where that money's coming from. We just have the title company. If it's like, right next to ours and it's, simultaneous closings, then you can close one and have the title company wire from here to here. That's absolutely easy peasy, like no big deal. So all that's the same. Acceptable funds are things that we can source, meaning like we figure out where it came from, and they're acceptable sources, meaning not personal loans, not credit card advances, not hard money stuff and going to Guido to get a bunch of money right before closing. The acceptable sources are going to be things like you can get a loan from yourself from a 401k. You can get it from a HELOC, something that's a secured asset that you've done. I've seen, it's rare, but I've seen folks do a cash out on their car. Not many banks do those these days, but again, it's acceptable funds. We do have to count that new debt against them. So there are ways to find money. I say find to access money. That's probably the better word. Access money and make sure that you got everything lined up for closing. But there are certainly wrong ways to do it. So before you start moving money, call us. Let's talk about where the money's going to come from, where you want it to come from, where it can come from, and let's talk about the different options to make your life better and our life better, and everybody's happy. Reach out to the Mortgage Mark team with questions. As always, we appreciate you watching. And remember, when you think mortgage, think Mark.